Alrighty, so it's time to do a news of the week episode, and of course I'm doing it on a Thursday because I was pretty much out all day, and including me going down to Sacramento to watch the US Open Cup between the Sacramento Republic and the San Jose Earthquakes, which, speaking of which, let us actually get to the first topic, because, we do have Open Cup yesterday, so, I'm going to do a quick recap in terms of what happened in the US Open Cup, and there were definitely some big story, including the one that I went to where, I just had a feeling, coming into that game between the Republic and the Quakes, that I just had a feeling the Republic were going to pull off the upset. I mean, with the way that it was a packed crowd at Hurt Health Park, or I think that's what it's called. It used to be called Papa Murphy's Park, and then they changed it to a name where it's kind of hard to kind of say it right off the tongue. But with the way that it was packed, and the fact that it was, even though it was like 100 degrees heading into that game, and, the temperature did kind of drop as it go, but for a packed crowd and for a Wednesday night, I mean, I just had a feeling that this was going to be a very special night in Sacramento, and knowing the fact that, Sacramento seems to really market the game, and it almost feel like it was a retribution game for Sacramento Republic after we know what happened last year when they suffer another big setback and another heartbreak where their owner decided to pull out of the MLS deal, and that it seems like now, once again, MLS has once again passed Sacramento for what seems like the 1 millionth time. You knew that this was a game where they want retribution. They want to show not only that they can pull off another upset in the U.S. Open Cup, because I know the Republic are very famous of doing that. I mean, they actually have a really good record in terms of playing the U.S. Open Cup at home, especially against MLS team. But they want to show MLS that, yeah, you probably shouldn't have passed us up, because they pulled off the upset against the Quakes. Now, granted, the Quakes did not play well in that game, and I know there's a lot of Quakes fans I've heard have ridiculed Alex Carvalho of the fact that they started a B team, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think he did the right thing, decided to play B team. I mean, I get it, yes, this is a competition that the Quakes should be focused, because we know the league is pretty much over, but I also feel like, again, with the way that this team has played so many games in the past couple of days, like, this was the fourth game that the Quakes were playing in the last 10 days, and the fact that, if he decided to put some of his starters out, I mean, maybe the team could play better, but, as I saw as they come into the second half, it didn't really meant that they play any better either, and especially with the way that the B team to the Quakes have done a relatively good job in the US Open Cup so far. I mean, they did upset the Seattle Sounders, and then of course they absolutely demolished Bay City. I mean, it kind of makes sense why he decided to go with a B team, and not to mention the Quakes do have another game in a very short turnaround too, against LAFC on the road for an afternoon game. I mean, I know this, again, is an unpopular opinion, but I think it's the right move to just kind of put out the B team, and if it doesn't work out, then basically start the A team, but unfortunately it just never worked out, and again, I just feel like that was a game where the Republic wants to more, especially with so much storyline heading into that game that is not just because of the fact that another thing that's been labeled of that game is known as the Helic Cup, and basically a game that, I really hope that this would be a game that could be an MLS fixture in the future, and that I've said many times before, I really hope the Republic eventually come to MLS, and that after all the heartbreak that this fan base have suffered, I mean, out of all the city that I think deserve an MLS team, it has to be Sacramento, with just so much heartbreak that they suffer of going into the league. But other resort that is definitely a big storyline of the U.S. Open Cup is what we saw at Allianz Field when Union Omaha. I mean, they are really the Cinderella story of this season. I mean, they're kind of writing a Cinderella story almost similar to what we saw with FC Cincinnati, and you could maybe argue this is even better because, yes, I know when Cincinnati went on that U.S. Open Cup before they went to MLS, obviously that was a big storyline of them going all the way to the semifinal, but imagine if Union Omaha can reach the same feat, and the fact that they are a third tier team to reach this far into the tournament, and I have a sense that they could do so, because their next opponent is against Sporting KC, and while Sporting KC did come back against Houston, and it feels like Sporting KC in this tournament, they're basically using their usual US Open Cup kind of magic where they always find ways to come back from resort. just have a feeling that there's going to be something special with the Owl and with the Union Omaha. I think they're going to continue to pull off an upset, and they showed it in that game against Minnesota, where they were down 1-0 early in the game, but they fought back hard. But again, I think that was also a game that, just like what I said about the Quakes not playing well, the same goes with Minnesota. And I think that was also a game where, I was happy that Union Omaha won, but I was definitely fuming about how the Loons play. And probably maybe the most angry I've saw the Loons play probably since when they got eliminated by Seattle back in the well, not the World Cup, but the Western Conference final that they had a couple of years ago. And maybe this is the first time I'm really now leaning toward the Heath Out Brigade, and that again, the Heath Out Brigade was definitely in full force when they saw the Loons lose to a third tier team. But yeah, other than that, we saw New England moving on. We almost saw an upset in Louisville, where for a long time Louisville was really hanging on against Nashville SC and even took a lead, though that lead did not last long when they play against Nashville. But Nashville pretty much broke the hearts of Louisville by sinking an 89th minute winner from Hani Mukhtar, and yeah, that of course gave Nashville them moving on into the quarterfinal. And then of course we saw El Tráfico, which I think that was probably the highest attended U.S. Open Cup game. I mean, I know the one in Sacramento, it was a sold out crowd of 11,500 plus, but there was a lot of fans at Dignity Health Sports Park, and maybe this is also kind of a sense that, again, for a long time, I've always kind of had this little hatred in terms of the fact that, the media always hyped up El Tráfico so much, even though this rivalry was found a couple of years ago. But maybe in some way it's a good thing, because now it really has got into the minds of the fans of both of these two fan bases, because, that stadium, while it wasn't completely full, it was pretty close to. I mean, that is probably the closest we've seen a packed stadium at the U.S. Open Cup, and that you can sense that this rivalry between these two LA teams, yeah, it's just going to get better. And now that it is in the U.S. Open Cup, I mean, you definitely said that was nothing like a U.S. Open Cup. That looked like an MLS game where both of these teams were going at each other and trying to get superiority of who indeed is the better LA team. But that being said, now let us actually talk about some of the news, as I actually spent a long time talking about some of the U.S. Open Cup that happened yesterday. Well, the biggest news came out today is Leeds United officially signed Brenden Aaronson from RB Salzburg for $30 million, and that the Union will receive $5 million on sell-on fee because of that. And I believe with Aaronson going to Leeds, he become for him going there for $30 million, he become the second most expensive transfer that involve an American in Europe. Obviously, the most expensive, it's still going to be Christian Pulisic when he went to Chelsea for like $72 million. And as a Chelsea fan, I mean, I feel like that was just a complete overpay. And in some way, it still hasn't really. I mean, I know Pulisic has some good moment for Chelsea, but it's still not. That was just a way of an overpay, and that's also not surprised, because a lot of Premier League team always tends to overpay players because of the amount of money that they had. And we'll see whether if this is another example of Leeds United decide to spend big bucks on getting Brenden Aaronson. But also, this move make perfect sense, because this is clearly a Jesse Marsch and Brenden Aaronson reunion, and under Marsch, I thought Aaronson played well when they both were in RB Salzburg. So maybe this will be the same case again. And also, if you're the Union, as I mentioned, they received $5 million sell-on fees. I mean, they're basically incredibly happy that this move happened, because they now know that they're going to get more money in the banks from the Aaronson sales. And it's just another example of why we're seeing a lot of these MLS teams are trying to kind of do what the Union have done, which is sell their player for a big amount of money. And if they develop well, then when they do transfer to another team, they can still receive a good, healthy amount of money. And for $5 million, that is definitely a lot of money for a sell-on fee that the Union, of course, just received. Now, the San Jose Earthquakes have hired John Wernick as a technical director. Now, this was kind of surprising, because I thought he was going to be staying with the Red Bulls for the rest of his time. I mean, he has been really well loved in the Red Bulls community, especially in the New York area. Was a legend for the Red Bulls before transition into the front office and have really revolutionized the academy that the Red Bulls had, and it feels like this is kind of the same thing that he's going to try to replicate of what the Quakes are doing. I mean, obviously, I'm clearly seeing that the direction the Quakes are heading is similar to the direction that the Philadelphia Union is heading in right now, where they're going to be heavily invested in the academy, and it makes perfect sense because, San Jose and really Northern California, or California as a region as a whole, has a lot of good talented player in this region. Now, the thing that is tricky is that a lot of these talented players ends up either going down to Liga MX or go overseas, and that I feel like for a long time these California teams like the Quakes, the Galaxy, or even LAFC haven't really done the best job in terms of trying to find these hidden gems and really get them into their academy and really promote them to make their team better. And at least right now it seems like the Quakes are doing exactly that. And yeah, I mean, the Quakes these last couple of years, they have really focused more on the academy side, and that, I'm definitely excited to see whether this will transition similar to what we see the same level where the Union and even FC Dallas had, where they rely heavily on their academy to do well in their form. Because, the last thing I really want for the Quakes to do right now is just continue to kind of suck for these past couple of years, and that I really want to see this team have an identity, and that if this is the new identity where they're going to rely on the academy and able to transition away, where we're going to see the same level of what the Union and Dallas has done, then I am perfectly fine with that. I mean, this team, they haven't tasted a lot of success, and if they can taste some success because it's coming out of the academy, I definitely will have no problem with it. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, Andrew Guzman, he is going to be out 8 to 12 weeks with a quad injury, and you know how many people talk about the Vancouver Whitecaps of being one of the most cursed teams this season in MLS. I think Atlanta United and certainly their fan base want to add that as a new discussion, because, man, the injury bugs just, like, Atlanta has now started becoming like the Columbus Crew of last season, where they just cannot get off of that injury bug. I mean, we heard about what happened a couple of weeks ago with Miles Robinson done for the season, and then we heard about the injury that they had with Joseph Martinez and all the other injuries that is going on, and now it seems like Andrew Guzman become the latest player. Oh, I didn't even mention about Brad Guzan going to be out for the season because of the torn ACL. And also, I know this will continue the discussion about the turf problem at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, because, when you see a lot of these injuries that Atlanta has had, a lot of them has been attributed mainly because of the artificial turf, and that, again, there's still this ongoing discussion of whether or not if turf is one of the big reason, especially artificial turf is one of the big reason why it's blowing players' knees left and right. But again, this obviously is another big setbacks for Atlanta United, and that this season I think it's safe to say that a part of the reason why this team has not done well and not have exceeded the way that they were hoping for from last season under Gonzalo Pineda is that they've been suffering so many injuries. And when you suffer so many injuries, especially to some of your key players, and I know Gutman is a key player in that defensive end for Atlanta, yeah, it's not a big surprise that they have not done well so far this season. Now, one player that have done well, at least this past week, is Seba Ferreira, who, he has started to really live up to the amount that the Dynamo have paid. And I've said this before, where I've thought Sebastian Ferreira, yes, he got off to a slow start, but, that's kind of the way with a lot of these foreign players. They take time to kind of adjust in the league, and it seems like he has started to finally adjust in the league, because he have won the Player of the Week. He basically contributed in all three of the goals that was scored by the Dynamo, whether on the assist chart or on the goal scoring chart, so well deserved of him winning the Player of the Week. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, is that MLS has officially unveiled the Parley Premier Blue jersey that will be worn for this match week. And actually, let me get my phone right now, because I'm going to show you guys what exactly it looks like, because I know every time when we talk about the Parley jersey, or in this case the Premier Blue jersey as MLS basically unveil, there's always a lot of people that is not happy about it because, they look absolutely ugly. And in this case, I can say that there are justification of these primary blue or parley jersey that, aren't really the prettiest, though, as I'm going to show you guys right now, as the internet is a little bit slow today. So yeah, let's see. There we go. It's kind of loading right now, but you can see one of the parley jersey right now. Again, it's still loading right now. The internet is slow. I mean, I'll probably leave a link in the description below in terms of showing you guys some of the primary jersey, or you can just go onto the league website and even go to the shop to basically take a look at it, because that's basically what they're advertising in terms of these parley / blue jersey. But yeah, I feel like, again, some of them does look pretty good, but then there's some of them look absolutely hideous, and that's just kind of the way it is. I mean, last season I actually did bought the parley jersey for the Quakes, and then I actually got the other type of primary blue jersey thanks to young Greg, who's actually kind enough to kind of hand me to one of his in-game jersey when I went to that game between Minnesota versus RSL. And yeah, I mean, again, when you look at these jerseys, I mean, some will say that they're glad the fact that their team only wears it once, but there's going to be some fan base that definitely loves it. And I've said from last season, the reason why I bought the Quakes parley jersey is that I feel like that should have been the away kit that the Quakes would be wearing. It's so much better than the previous one that they had, and especially so much better than the current one that they're wearing, that is absolutely hideous and just completely bland. Now, moving on into the next news. So the Canadian national team has announced that they are canceling the international friendly with Iran in June. Now, to kind of talk about this news without going political is going to be tough, because there's a reason why Canada is doing this. I mean, there's been a lot of people that is not happy the fact that they decided to play an international friendly with Iran, especially with the whole political situation in there. But also, Iran kind of have now fired back and said that, yeah, Canada, you got to pay us up because you decided to cancel this, and we feel like this is clearly done because of a political move, or kind of just done in an unsportsmanlike kind of move, though we know it's mostly because of political reason. And again, I won't talk too much into that, because so far, anytime when we talk about politics nowadays, it's just really ugly. And it's also the reason why I haven't mentioned the certain event that had happened just a couple of days ago, that you probably know what happened, and I'm not going to mention it because I really do not want to talk about it, and especially on a YouTube video. But yeah, I mean, again, I think at the end this is the right move that Canada of course has made, and that again we'll see the whole situation, whether it will calm down a little bit, because it seems like right now there's now beef between both Canada and Iran, especially with this just canceling the international friendly, and the whole part of how Iran is not happy about it, mainly because this is just for political reason. Now, to move on to a little bit of a less political view kind of news, is that FIFA has announced that they will unveil and announce the 2026 World Cup venue and the host city in the 2026 World Cup. Actually, I kind of wrote a redundant. I kind of redundant myself by writing 2026 World Cup there, but that of course will be unveiled on June 16th. So there's been that long discussion of who exactly is going to be the host city. I mean, for some, it's pretty obvious that where exactly they're going to host the city. I mean, I know pretty much for all free venue in Canada, and also I think free venue for Mexico, that's pretty much confirmed. But this is just kind of a news to confirm which city in the U.S. is going to get to host the World Cup, because there's still a lot of these cities that it is basically buying for those precious spots of potentially hosting the World Cup. But now, moving on in terms of the next match, or not the next match, I mean the next episode. Again, I think I'm getting too used to talking about reviews and preview for a second, but the next story, and really the last story for this news of the week, is the U.S. men's national team has officially named the 27-man roster for the June friendly and the Nations League. And this actually was announced last week, so I'm a little bit late to the party talking about this, and I would definitely talked about this if I would have done a news of the week last week. But when you look at the 27-man roster, it's not actually a weak kind of roster that the U.S. is going to be feeling for those June friendly and for those Nations League. And there's a good reason why that's the case, because I think Greg Berhalter is trying to mix up with some of these guys that are kind of still on the fence of potentially making it to the World Cup, or to the players that is clearly part of the A team and that they are going to be definitely guys that pretty much have secured their spot and secured their plane tickets to go to Qatar in the World Cup in November. But in the goalkeeping position, we got Ethan Horvat, Zach Steffen, and Matt Turner as the free goalkeeper. I mean, these are pretty much the free goalkeeper that was in the Nations League last time. And, the goalkeeping situation, that is still a huge discussion right now, because, I know a lot of people have talked about these free goalkeepers just not being good enough to play for the World Cup, and that now there's even talks about how guys like Gaga Slonina or even Stefan Fry could be in the discussion. And notice Gaga Slonina, he was not called up in this roster, which again, I don't know if this had something to do with the fact that he announced it so late that his intention is now going to be playing for the U.S. instead of playing for the Polish national team, or the fact that I think the U.S. was not allowed to pick Gaga Slonina because Poland has already called him up, and that I think there's a certain rule where once one country called up a player, you can't just simply just decide to hijack the move and say, look, now you're going to play for us, even if you have announced later that, yeah, I haven't announced my intention that I will be playing for this certain country instead of the other certain country. But in the defense, we got George Bellum, Reggie Cannon, Cameron Carter Vickers, Eric Palmer Brown, Anthony Jedi Robinson, Joe Scally, DeAndre Yedlin, and Walker Zimmerman. Now, in the defensive part, there are some names that is kind of unfamiliar, though you probably have heard before. One such name is Cameron Carter Vickers. I mean, that's a name I haven't heard a long time. That it is potentially be with the U.S. men's national team, because a lot of people talk about he was going to be a future U.S. men's national team defender, but didn't really quite work out. And Aaron Long is a big name too, because we talk about the injuries of Miles Robinson. It seems like maybe Aaron Long could be the one that could replace Miles Robinson in that center back role. Eric Palmer Brown, the guy that I actually have never heard about, and I think this is his first cap for his country. Joe Scally, another guy that he was on the cusp when he was called up, I think, for a couple of those World Cup qualifying, but it didn't really quite work out. And then I know that last year he was in the Nations League roster and also in the Gold Cup roster for a bit. So he's another guy that is kind of on the cusp, or maybe getting into a spot of the World Cup roster. DeAndre Yedlin, a guy that I think the reason why he's still here for the U.S. men's national team is because of experience wise. I mean, he definitely has kind of gone past his prime a little bit, but like I said, Greg Berhalter does have his favorites at time, and he does rely on some of his experienced player, and it seems like DeAndre Yedlin is one of those players. Now in the midfield, you got Kellen Acosta, Tyler Adams, Luca De La Torre, Weston McKennie, Georgi Mihailovic, Yuna Musa, Christian Rodon, and Melik Tillman in the midfield role. I'm so happy to see that Georgi Mihailovic finally got his chance. I mean, I've been kind of pounding that drum for a long time of why Georgi Mihailovic deserve another shot of the U.S. men's national team, and especially what an incredible season he's been having with Montreal, and kind of almost an MVP type of season with Montreal this season. He definitely deserved another shot with the U.S. men's national team, and let's see if he can take this opportunity better than the last time, where he didn't really do the best job last time when he break into the U.S. men's national team part of the January camp. Another notable player on this midfield that I want to talk about is Melik Tillman. He was originally going to play for Germany, but then announced that he's actually going to be playing for the U.S. instead of playing for Germany, so that's kind of interesting thing to see. But other than that, a lot of familiar names there, especially from the World Cup qualifying roster. It's great to see Weston McKennie back into the list after he's been injured, especially near the end of the World Cup qualifying run that the U.S. had. But there are going to be some names on here in the midfield that I can definitely see that are locked in terms of making the World Cup, like guys like Tyler Adams is pretty much a lock. Western McKennie is pretty much a lock. Calvin Acosta could be, maybe he could be there. Luca Del Torre, I'm not quite sure that's going to be the case. And even Christian Rodon, there could be a case that he could be a on the cusp of potentially making that World Cup roster, and the same goes with Jonas Musa. But in the forward group, we got Brenden Aaronson, Paul Arriola, Jesus Ferreira, Jordan Morris, Christian Pulisic, Tim Ware, and Haji White as your group for group for these June friendlies and Nations League. Again, there are some familiar names, and that they're a part of the A team, and that they're probably going to be locked to make it to the World Cup. I mean, Brenden Aaronson just made that big move to Leeds, which right now it says RB Salzburg, but they probably should change it to Leeds United, though. To the USOC Federation's credit, they didn't know that he was going to be going to Leeds when they announced the roster for the June friendly. Paul Arriola could be a lock too. I mean, he's played a lot during the World Cup qualifying stage. Jesus Ferreira, a guy that a lot of U.S. men's national team fans said that he may be the answer for that number 9 question that's been lingering with this team heading into the World Cup, and he's definitely been in good form with FC Dallas so far. But don't forget about Jordan Morris too. Though Jordan Morris, I mean, I feel like this is a huge opportunity to prove that he deserved to be on this team, because he hasn't really been the best in terms of his club level with the Sounders, and maybe some would say that they're kind of surprised that he kind of got a shot in terms of considering he's not in the best form. But if he can do well in this, then he can definitely fight with Jesus Ferreira in terms of that number 9 position. Christian Pulisic, I mean, he's pretty much a lock, and the same goes with Tim Ware. And then Haji Wright, a guy that I actually have never heard about, but he apparently, I think, is making his first cap here, and he's kind of another guy that is just given an opportunity in these June friendly, but I don't expect we're going to see a lot of him so for in these June friendlies and in the Nations League. That is going to happen because we do have the international friendly start to happen in June and the international break, and it's also a great opportunity with not only the international break happening in June, but finally for me to make some video talk about MLS, and also kind of talk about these friendlies and Nations League, and that I probably will do a review in terms of, I mean, I kind of don't want to do review for friendlies because it doesn't really talk. I don't really kind of want to talk about like a lot of the resort itself, because the resort really doesn't matter in these friendlies. It's all about the performance. But in the Nations League, I think I'll definitely do reviews in terms of talking about some of these Nations League games that the U.S. are going to be playing. I mean, the Nations League, I think, is a good opportunity for this team to kind of still play in a competitive match, because we know that they're not going to really play a really competitive match, in a match that really matter until the World Cup happen in November in Qatar. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this news of the week, and as always, if there's any news that I didn't mention here on the news of the week board, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.